Hello all and welcome to Wow Crochet Designs. My name is Mary, and in today's lesson for our beginner series you'll be learning how to do the single crochet. Now the single crochet is a relatively small stitch, a nice tight small stitch in crochet, solid stitch if you will. We call them solid stitches because there's less gaps, all right? Now I have used a hook size bigger than the yarn called for, just so that you can see the stitches. And I'll get nice and close for you so you can have a look at them. I have used a larger hook so you'll see more gaps. If you use the right size hook for your yarn, then yours won't be so see-through like that. Now let me just talk to you quickly about the hook and the yarn. I'm using just some thick yarn I have in stock. It's actually an Aran weight or a number 4 or a 10 ply here in Australia, number 4 overseas, and it calls for a 5mm hook. But today, so that you can see the stitches clearer, I've decided to use the 6mm hook. This is a clover crochet hook. It's the main hook I use on the channel. However, I have used others. All right, I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm just going to let you get started creating and learning how to create this gorgeous solid stitch, the single crochet. Good luck all. To do the single crochet stitch, you need to know firstly how to make a slip knot and a chain. I'm going to show you real quickly how to do that now. If you need some practice doing those, I do have a link for both of them as one tutorial. The very first link you come to in the description box down below on how to do the slip knot and chain. And it also gives you a kind of like a little bracelet thing with it as well. All right, so if you want to have a practice with that, head on down there and click on that link. In the meantime, we're going to start off by making the slip knot, grabbing the tail end of your yarn, wrap it around your finger once, twice, holding it there and holding it down there. Pass your back loop halfway over your finger, hold it there, pass the other loop all the way over, pop your hook in, giving everything a tug. All right, now to make a chain, yarn over your hook, and all you're doing is pulling it through to the loop on your hook once, yarn over twice, yarn over. This is a chain, third chain, fourth chain, fifth chain, sixth chain, and so on. So you can go ahead and practice that, but in the meantime let's do 7, 8, 9, 10, I don't know, 11, 12. It doesn't matter. It's just enough to put some single do you like that? I didn't even count that properly. It's just enough to put some single crochets in. All right, okay, so I've got a close up here to show you that this section right here is a stitch, but it's one that's actually attached to your hook. So if you give it a tug, that will really tighten up. So you won't be putting any stitching in that stitch. However, in the very next stitch where you see the little space right there, if you give it a tug, you can see that tiny, tiny little space in there. You're going to pop your hook in the top loop of that space. All right. So just the whole hook goes into the top loop, pull a loop through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through both those loops. That is your single crochet. Okay, simple, yeah? Hook in the very next loop, and you see them, they're just right on top. Now for now we're working in the top loops, and I'll explain that to you later, but pop your hook in that top loop, pull a loop through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and off you go, doing all your little single crochets all the way across your piece. All right, I'll just bring that out a little bit so you can not see my hands in, 3D. And just do your single crochets across your row. And this is a row because we have not joined our thread. If we had joined our thread from the beginning, we would be working in rounds, but don't worry about that. That's a whole new tutorial in itself as well. There's a whole new tutorials in itself. And the reason I say that is because before I mentioned that we will be popping our hook in the first loop. Now I just want to get a close up for you to show you there are other ways you can do this. Your hook can actually go through the base of the stitch. All right, so 2 loops on top and 1 on the bottom as well. If you are doing a pattern that consists of that, I split the yarn, so hopefully you don't do that. Also, there's another way you can actually pop them in a thing called the back bumps. If you turn your work to the back, you see these little bumps right here. They actually work really well when you're not doing border rows, okay? If you don't want to do any border rows, the back bumps look really nice. It looks like your row has been complete. All right, but in the meantime, we're just doing the top loop, just practicing the top loop for now, because we are learning our stitch. So here we are at the end. We've got our very last stitch. How you can tell it's your last stitch, your knot is really tight there. You can't put anything in that knot. And don't stress too much, that will actually tighten up and you'll be able to weave that end in the future. But there is one more stitch right there. So give everything a stretch and you can see a little gap in there. So that is one more stitch next to the knot. And now you can see the knot better, yeah? Pop your hook in, pull a loop through, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, I'm just going to lift up my loop for a minute to show you the stitches. A single crochet, half double crochet, double, treble, whatever stitch you make will always have that little, it's actually interlocking, it's like a chain, but we call them a V in crochet. They look like the letter V, yeah? But they're kind of interlocking with each other. That interlocks into the next stitch, that into the next, and so on. So when you are counting your stitches, if you hear a pattern, or if you read a pattern that says you need 20 single crochets, you are counting these little V's, 1, 2, 3, and so on. All right. When you are doing a single crochet into a single crochet, which we will be doing right now, there's 2 ways you can do this. You can chain 1 at the moment or not. I'm going to chain 1 for now, and that's yarn over your hook, chain 1, right? We now have to work across this way, okay? So you can either turn your work like that and work that way, or you can do it the way I do it, which is neither right or wrong. Turn it the other way, like you're turning the page in a book. Now, the reason I do it that way is because this way I always remember which way I turned it and I don't get confused. So you just need to stay consistent throughout your work. It doesn't matter which way you turn it. All right, so you've turned your work. If you look carefully, this is what you have. You've got big gaps on the bottom where your chains are, and then right in there, the top gaps are where you want to go into. Now, what you've got on a single crochet stitch and half double and double and so on, 2 loops. We're not going to do anything. I just want to show you the loops. These 2 loops. That's a front loop and that's your back loop. When you are popping your hook through there and both loops are on top, that's called the stitch. When you are working in your front loop, that's just called the stitch through the front loop. Yeah. When you are working in the back loop, it's called a single crochet in your back loop. The terminology, there's a lot of terminology to know. And sadly, we've got 2 different types of terminologies. We've got the UK version and the US version. I'm actually working with the US version, okay? But right in there, we're going to go in the loops for now. We're not going to worry about all the front loops and back loops yet. We're going to pop a hook just in the very first little gap you see, the space you see, not the base gaps, but the top gaps. That's where you want to go into. That's your stitch. You should have 2 loops there on top, your front and your back. Pop your hook in, pull a loop through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. And you've now you actually started your second row, all right? And you're going to do the same thing all the way across. If you're not sure where the next stitch is, give it a tug. You can see the first space you get to, that's where you're going into, making sure your 2 loops are on top. Yep, pull your thread through, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. All right, so that's pretty much what you need to do throughout this row as well. So pop into every stitch in this row and we'll take our time to do it. There's no rush. We're not, it's not the end of the year yet. It's almost there, guys. We're not that far off from Christmas. And then the new year's going to come, just like that. Just keep going all the way across. Oh, by the way, if you are interested in checking out our Christmas patterns, we actually have a playlist, a Christmas playlist 2022. I'll actually pop that in a description box down below with a couple of other old Christmas items that we've made that actually are quite popular now. Yeah. All right. So you should be right at the end of your row, and what you should have is something like that. Now, this is where a lot of people tend to forget there's another stitch there. It's easy to miss. You can just go like that and then turn. It's easy to miss, but there is another stitch, and the way you tell is you face your work to you, and if you see another V, then there's another stitch. So you go into that very last V, and it's a bit of a tricky one. You really have to kind of forcibly pop your hook in there and then pull a loop through, yarn over, pull through 2. Any more V's to come? No more V's there, and there we go. Now we are chaining 1. Once again, we're turning our work whichever way you turned it before, yeah? And then you're going to do exactly the same into that very first stitch that you see. And if you're not sure about the stitches, face them to you. Go like that. So popping your hook in and go like that. And you can see all the little V's. You're going into the V's. Now, being careful not to skip a stitch. Let's say for argument's sake you missed that stitch and you went into the very next one. Not only would your work pull in a little bit, you'll have a big space in there which shouldn't be there, and you'll also be short a stitch, so be careful. And being careful not to put 2 stitches in one. You're in there already. If you go in there and pop another stitch there, it won't look wrong by looking at it, but later your stitch count will be out, and also your work will start to grow that way and it'll be all out of shape. If that's what the pattern asks you to do, then by all means go ahead and do that. But otherwise, you're putting single crochets in every stitch all the way along the row there, chain 1, turn, and just continue doing that for however long you want your piece to be. All right, so what I want you to do just quickly is to pause your video right here. Just press pause for a moment and do 4 more rows, and I'll meet you back here once you're done. Alrighty guys, here we are at the end of our 4 rows. Actually we have 6 because we did 2 rows previously. So what you should have are straight edges with very, very tiny little bubbles. They are the chains at the end of each row. If your work is like that, you have missed a stitch. Yeah. If you've got too much all bunched up together, you've put too many stitches in the one stitch. If you've got a massive gap way down here or way over here, it means you may have missed a stitch. All right. But anyway, what you need to do now is just have a big practice with your single crochets. Quick thing I wanted to let you know, single crochet can, after doing a few rows, can turn up like this. It usually sorts itself out once you do your 50 or 20 or 40 or however many you need for your pattern. However, if your work is like that to begin with, it means that you need to go up a hook size because you're crocheting really tightly. If it's just a little bump like that, that will sort itself out, all right? If by any chance you can see through all your single crochets too much, then that means your stitching is too loose and you need to go down a hook size. We can talk about hooks in the future. So that's it guys, you have now learnt how to do a single crochet. That's lesson number 2 in our beginners series. Don't forget to join me next week for lesson number 3. In the meantime, I've left a playlist. The second link you see in the description box down below will be a playlist to this beginner series. The first link was the chain and slip knot. Okay, that was part 1 of our series. After that, I will just keep leaving playlists in the description box down below. You can click on that playlist and work your way up. All right? Thank you so much for watching. Happy crocheting to you, and ciao for now.